That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Alone Together, the sophomore film directed by Katie Holmes, which Vertical Entertainment is releasing July 22nd, 2022. It premiered at the 2022 Tribeca Film Festival. And it is a COVID film, which I wasn't aware of beforehand.
What was her first film?
Something called All We Had from 2016, which I have not seen.
This movie was garbage. I was so frustrated. The basic story, Katie Holmes plays a woman named
June.
June is like this lady living in the Upper West Side of New York City. It's early March of 2020. Mm-hmm. So right before New York goes into lockdown because of COVID. We find that her boyfriend, John, played by
Derek Luke, June and John.
John has booked an Airbnb for the two of them out like in the country somewhere so they can just get away from the chaos of what's happening. Because it seems like at that point they were under the impression that COVID was just going to last 2 weeks. So she makes her way, and there's some complications, but on her way, she gets a message from her boyfriend saying, "Oh, I'm not going. My parents are scared. I'm going to stay with them." So already she's upset. She gets to the Airbnb, and we see that it's been double booked. And we can get into that. Mm-hmm. But the man who's staying there, his name is...
Charlie.
Played by...
Jim Sturgess.
Okay, so she's at this house. June is at the house. Charlie's there. She's acting like a total brat. And what does he decide to do? Let her come in and stay the night. They hit it off. They basically fall in love.
Very quickly.
When one morning, like maybe 2 to 3 days into their escapade, she wakes up and he's gone. Like he's taken all of his stuff and cleaned up and he's out of there. So she thinks he ditched her. So she calls an Uber and decides to go back. Mm-hmm. It's also important to know that during that period, she's called her boyfriend John, and told him that it's over. Basically.
That they need a break, I think.
So as she's about to hop into the Uber, old boy, the white man, pulls into the driveway. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" "I was just going to get groceries." And she's like, "Oh, after you packed up all your stuff?" And then he admits to her, "Well, I was scared. I thought we were moving too fast, whatever."
He says, "I thought I was taking advantage of you.
But I realized that I want to see you more." So she's like, "Okay, well, I'll stay." So they stay. But it's also important to know during this time, her grandfather has died. Mm-hmm. Her boyfriend, John, who she called and left a voicemail saying it's over.
And doesn't pick up the phone when he's called, when he tries to return the call.
He shows up because his grandfather dies. Father dies. So she's like, okay, she doesn't have the heart to tell him, like, it's for real over. So the white guy leaves. Mm-hmm. They stay for a little bit, but then it's clear that they really aren't a good couple. So they leave. She goes back to the city and tries to find old boy, Ricky, what's his name? Charlie. They reconnect, the end.
Yes.
Can I just read what my first note was? I wrote, "What the fuck is this shit?"
My first note is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Or that.
It's clear that Ms. Holmes, I think, is trying to make an earnest, sincere statement, portrait reflecting what the world was going through, told through the microcosm of these terribly boring people. But it doesn't work, and it also feels like it's written by somebody that has never reserved an Airbnb.
Okay, can we talk about that? Because we've seen a couple of things recently where it involves like an Airbnb being double booked.
A snafu.
Notably with Winona Ryder.
Gone in the Night.
But
yes.
in that scenario, it makes sense because the character who's saying they double booked is lying. But even for her character to not realize that that's not really possible, I need to see a confirmation email. The same thing with this movie. These two dummies are looking at each other like, she says, "Well, my boyfriend booked it, so it can't be wrong, even though I don't know anything about what he booked. I don't have any emails confirming anything." And then the guy, Richard Lucky, what's his name? Charlie, he says, "Oh, my homeboy booked me this house." So I also don't know.
Very sketch.
But it couldn't have been a mistake.
And presumably in response to him also going through a relationship that just ended terribly.
Oh my God, it's so stupid.
And it's worth noting that Charlie's mother is played by Melissa Leo, who shows up for several kind of useless scenes.
let me just go through these quickly. When her character is in it feels like she was trying to write a character who she's not familiar with. So it just feels like when an alien is trying to be a human, because
or when a Scientologist is.
Watch us get shut down now. We live near the big Scientology center.
Well, she was a prisoner for a while. Presumably, she's not on good terms with them still, but who knows? Her greatest role ever as Tom Cruise's third wife.
She's in the Uber, and the Uber driver's like, "Oh, I have some hand sanitizer if you want it." And he gives her like a little bitty sample of some hand sanitizer, and she douses herself with it. She's rubbing it all over her hands. She's putting it on like it's perfume. She's rubbing it in her hair like it's leave-in conditioner.
I think that you weren't paying attention when Derek Luke orders Uber Eats, and the way he's acting about putting his shirt over his nose and then also taking hand sanitizer and rubbing it all over these brown bag goods. It's very over the top.
My next note is this character is acting like she doesn't know how life works. Like, how does she even function? Then, what we know about her character is she's from Indiana. Iowa mixed with Indiana. No, Idaho mixed with Iowa. She's from Indiana. She's a food critic.
A vegan food critic.
Who became vegan a month ago. Doesn't seem to know what McDonald's is. Just like so weird. Okay, then we find out her parents.
So they're roasting marshmallows, her and Charlie, over the fireplace. And she's just sipping on her Sauvignon Blanc, talking casually about how her parents died a murder-suicide when she was a child. And he has literally no reaction to it.
No reaction. Then... whatever.
It is so bizarre.
My next note is no one needs this movie. Also, how old is Katie's character supposed to be? Because Katie Holmes is 43. She's a lovely looking lady, but she looks like a mature woman. And this character is acting like she's like in her late 20s, early 30s. Because even the way she's talking to her friend, she has a friend who she calls on FaceTime or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, you two are talking like
you're...
Not like you're women in your 40s.
Right, like life is just kind of hitting you for the first time that you have to deal with it, is how she's seeming.
Also, before she tells old boy she's a vegan, she's trying to order Papa John's. And the Papa John's tells him like, "Oh, we don't have any drivers, we're closed." What was she going to get from Papa John's that was vegan? Just like
cheese pizza?
Plain dough? But
margarita?
Cheese is not vegan. So what was
That's true, actually.
Was she going to get like a pizza crust with tomato sauce on it? Like,
I'm sure that Papa John's has something, I don't know.
When she asks Charlie, when she asks him what he does for work...
How many men do you know named Lucky?
Tupac from Poetic Justice.
This is true. But that also reminds me of Britney Spears, because Katie Holmes sings at one point to her her grandpa via Zoom, and
that's right.
She sounds just like Britney Spears, yo.
Yep. When she asks Lucky what his job is, he says, "I just kind of restore things. Anything." What?
It doesn't.
Who wrote this?
And then, of course, at first I was thinking there is some grand plan here that Katie Holmes as in Junebug, is so obnoxious that it's like, oh, this is a COVID movie redone. This is The Taming of the Shrew redone as a COVID film.
Nope.
But it's not. And I think you made a comment like, oh my God, of course these two are going to fall in love. But it makes about as much sense as like Jason Lee and Jennifer Love Hewitt and Heartbreakers. This person wouldn't fall in love with her. So then it's just like, oh, but you're such a simpleton that it just takes this man, this kind of propinquity for you to like fall in love with him.
Speaking of like a character who's like not a real person, there's a scene where they're doing karaoke.
There's a bike riding scene and a karaoke scene where we get this sappy...
It's like aliens doing karaoke and riding a bike, and like, just because we're not hearing them sing, it's just like a score over it, and they're dancing chaotically and off of like one glass of white wine. Like, what is happening?
And I don't know, this is not the first COVID film, of course. There's Stephen Daldry's Together. There's Alone Together.
Which I didn't care for, but that movie is better than this one.
I didn't care for that either. I liked a little bit better Locked Down from Doug Liman with Anne Hathaway.
That was better, yeah.
She would tell Ejiofor. That's better, but again, even watching those films, like, how well are these going to age?
There's another scene where Lucky is trying to make... He cooks like SpaghettiOs, and then he tries to get Katie to sample them. And even the way she
puts that wooden spoon in her mouth.
It's like she's never had food before. Like, she puts this full-ass wooden spoon in her mouth to take a little taste, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't like it." And then he jazzes it up by putting olive oil and pepper in it. What was that?
There's also a scene where has to open her phone and she's blowing.
That's right. When she has to unlock her phone, she blows on it.
I don't know if it's 'cause
that's an alien trying to be a human.
I don't know if
in
there
this
was
movie.
some kind of detritus or something on her phone that we don't see, but it just looked odd.
It looks
It just
awkward.
looked odd.
I don't have anything else to say.
I'd said this was the indie version of The Circle.
The reality show on Netflix.
Yes.
The Circle's better.
Yes, but Jim Sturgess and Derek Luke are fine. I think she really does Derek Luke a disservice in writing John as a complete moron that she's just not. She is unfairly treating because she's not communicating with him.
We have somewhere to be, but we need to talk about the house they're in because they look like they're in the Hamptons. Like it's a very, very nice house. The surroundings are beautiful. The house is huge. And we're told this house only has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and they're both upstairs. Under no circumstances is the house we see, the facade, a house that has only 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom upstairs. And it's a plot point because he has to sleep on the couch. And the couch he's choosing to sleep on is like a little love seat, so he's all curled up uncomfortably. And then there's a point where she sees him naked because he has to go upstairs to use the bathroom.
Again, it's also during her location scouting, which is like, nobody will think that this place doesn't have more than 1
Why
bathroom.
didn't they shoot in like a cottage? That would make sense. Like these two people are very in close proximity. But when we see the house more than once, the exterior, it's huge.
I will say beautiful poster art for what it is. It looks like a Hong Sang-soo film based on the the poster art, but is also a little bit misleading. But it was difficult to get through, even at 98 minutes. And poor Melissa Leo, I don't understand why she's in there, also kind of looking terrible. And you know who that is, right? She won the Oscar for The Fighter.
Yes.
Which she's quite good in.
Yeah.
And Derek Luke, who is Antoine Fisher, and Sean P. Diddy Combs from that
Notorious.
That so Biggie biopic. But anyhow, it just seems kind of like a wasted endeavor. But I can sense that Katie Holmes is trying to craft roles for herself, which of course I find commendable. Considering the last thing I saw her in was The Secret Dare to Dream, which if you haven't seen that, oh my god.
What would you give it?
1.
Unfortunately, I would give it 1 out of 5. There was nothing about this movie I liked. I wouldn't give it half a star just because I feel like it was made in earnest. So she was trying.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So
anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.